When we start to integrate communication protocols, what we're really trying to do is reduce the sending. We're trying to reduce the ping pong game. We're trying to reduce the escalation. We're trying to reduce the back and forth. So phone calls, we typically say we want to keep that for emergencies only. Let's say there's an emergency, you can call your co-parent then. What happens if they don't answer? Then you can send a text saying, hey, it's an emergency. Please call me as soon as you can. I'm headed to the hospital with John. It's brief, it's fast, it's firm. Texting, we want to keep to time sensitive. So just as I said before, you can follow up with a text if it's an emergency phone call, or you can also use texting for something time sensitive, such as, hey, there's a lot of traffic. We're running 5 minutes behind, but we're just at Taylor Way. Most of your communication will typically be written. So it'll typically be via email or through an app. And this is because we want to reduce the sending. It's not because we want to build more evidence. It's not because we want to go into the story. It's really because we want to limit the interaction. And the way in which we've tailored it is with an FYI and an RR. So for those of you that have teenagers, you know what an FYI is. It's for your information. And for those of you that have done some co-parenting stuff, you know that an RR is response required. And these are typically the only 2 emails we encourage parents to send. So the FYI is more so, hey, just found out soccer game is changed to Saturday at 9 instead of 11. FYI. So you put that in the subject line and then you send the email to your co-parent. Now with the RR, it would be something more with a response required. And what's really important about this setup is that when you send the response required, you've already made an agreement prior to this that the other co-parent that receives the email will acknowledge it within 24 hours. So you've agreed that within 24 hours, when you see an email from each other, that you're basically going to say, hey, I received your email. This limits any sort of back and forth, nagging, pursuing, pressuring. The other piece that really limits that is responding back to your co-parent and saying, I've received this email with thanks. I will answer by tomorrow at noon. So you're following up with a specific time and date. So your co-parent knows, okay, I can expect an answer by tomorrow at noon. The transition logs can sometimes be helpful, typically for young children. We prefer to stick to a log because it's much more realistic of just clicking different boxes and sharing different pieces. When you know it's right is when it looks more like an update you would get from a care center. It looks more professional. It's not going into too many details. It's just more so like Sally had a nap. The one thing I will say to this though is that sometimes transition logs can inflame conflict because it's too much information. And parents can often fall into surveillancing each other. One feels more critical than the other. Sometimes it's not realistic. Like you have your kids with you and then you're going through almost like this nurse charting thing. Like it's just not realistic. So I'm hesitant about that one at times. And I think really the big message is less is more. The structure breeds the flexibility. The other piece to this is that we're not really asking for flexibility. It's asking more to be reasonable.